Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your guy Rudy SKC, and welcome to a brand new video. As you can tell by my smile, the Detroit Lions in the game of the century come out on top over the Minnesota Vikings 31-9, and they are officially the NFC North champions for the second consecutive year. And with that also, they take the number one seed in the NFC. We get a home bye. We get an extra week to rest our starters. Minnesota's in the 5th seed. Sucks to suck, Vikings fans. If you guys aren't on Twitter, by the way, sorry, I don't mean to come off as extremely rude. The NFC North fans on Twitter this year have been almost insufferably toxic. And especially this last week, the amount of talking the Vikings fans did on Twitter, there is getting to a point where I just completely shut myself out of the app. I mean, it was getting crazy. You guys are the people, let me preface this. You guys are the people who started calling Kirby Joseph dirty for doing literally exactly what everyone else does. Your Vikings players literally did it today, right? The low hits that you guys are talking about, whether it's Kirby on Hawk or Tyler Higbee. Literally, you guys did it to Sam Laporta today. Not once, not twice. I saw 3 times that happen. So Vikings fans, you guys don't get to say anything. You guys don't get to talk. And don't even talk about how this was a road game in Ford Field. You guys what? You guys said you were going to take over the stadium? Guess what? That didn't happen. Because guess what? We have the best fan base in the entire NFL. And you guys had your chance to beat us. We beat you in your house. We beat you in our house. And guess what? Now that means all roads run through Detroit for the playoffs. It was just an incredible performance from the team. And I really want to start off by saying this. There's been, in this city especially, there's been a lot of discourse about Aaron Glenn as a defensive coordinator. And I think that sometimes it just gets a little ridiculous to me. I understand if it's coming from the outside, right, consistently, but you can see whenever the Lions defense, they play an amazing game, right? You can see everyone's praising Aaron Glenn. Oh my God, Aaron Glenn, he's a mastermind. But even if for one game, if the defense goes astray, everyone gets on the fire and Aaron Glenn chants. And I don't understand that at all. See, I understand if it's on national media and some guy who doesn't watch Lions football, doesn't really know what he's talking about, is consistently getting on Aaron Glenn. But you saw fans inside this town for the last 3 weeks, pretty much since the first half of the Bears is kind of when the Lions defense has not looked good. And, a large part of it is due to injury, but a large part of the fan base is saying, you guys that they're not playing up to standard, and they're saying that Aaron Glenn isn't coaching up to his standard. I mean, you got to give the guy a little bit time to figure out how to deal with, having the most injuries in the NFL, having the most players on IR. And it seems like every single time Lions fans do that, Aaron Glenn comes back in a few games and he gives it right back to you. I mean, the game plan from start to finish was great, right? I want to mention this, right? With the defense, I always say this. You have to get pressure on the quarterback early. I don't care if it's Patrick Mahomes, if it's Josh Allen, if it's Sam Darnold, if it's Baker Mayfield, if it's the worst quarterback in the NFL. You get pressure on a quarterback early. You get them starting to see ghosts. You get them overthrowing passes. You get them rushing passes. And you get them throwing away the ball way too soon. That's what happens when you get pressure in this league. It doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you are. It happens. And, maybe if you're a great quarterback, the effect that happens to is reduced, right? But that happens to every single quarterback in this league. And if you look at the last few games, this is what the Lions have been missing. This isn't a problem of, since Hutch has been out, our pass rush has not been as great. Of course it's not been as great. But it's not been as bad as it was over the last 3 games, even in the span that Hutch missed. So seeing that today was extremely refreshing for me. Aaron Glenn did a lot of blitzing early, and he did a great job of disguising those, right? We always give an extreme amount of credit to Brian Flores for the way that he disguises his blitzes and the way he throws his linemen in stunts, the way he, hides what coverage he's running until the last 4 or 5 seconds, and the defense is still perfectly in line. Aaron Glenn did that, and he did better today. The amount of variations of blitz I think I saw at least 2 or 3 times where Jack Campbell was coming on a stunt with, DJ Reader lined up, and it completely confused Minnesota's offensive line. They didn't know what was going on. And it was happening, although I'm just telling you guys what I saw. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to go back and really look at the film. But it was absolutely masterful blitzing. And people are just going to go and look at the box score and say, you know what, the Lions, they blitzed on most percentage of plays. The Lions, they got lucky. Aaron Glenn, he got lucky. He puts his players in man coverage. That's not going to succeed in the long run. But you really got to look at how he's blitzing, who he's blitzing, the personnel he's using, the variations in blitzes. It's super unpredictable. You don't know it was to a point today where, usually I've been watching the Lions for the past 3-4 years in a row. I've seen Aaron Glenn from day one to now in the Lions coaching staff. I can kind of tell some certain defensive tendencies. Same thing with Ben Johnson on offense. And today I had no clue. I had no clue what side the rush was coming from. So absolutely great job by Aaron Glenn. Couple obviously individual performances. Zadarius Smith today was crazy, right? First quarter, he gets a sack right away. He was able to generate pressure on Sam Darnold the entire game. Pascal, he was getting in there with pressures. I believe he had a sack too. He had deflections in there. I mean, he was playing crazy. Levi, I know he got injured a little bit at the end. Hopefully it was just cramps, but he was also playing great, clogging up the middle. Reader had great plays. Muhammad had a sack at the end. So all these guys who, throughout the year, we've seen them make individual plays. Today, you saw it come together as a team. And they were getting to Sam Darnold early. And they were forcing Sam Darnold. You saw inside the red zone, and I'm going to get to this next. There are a couple plays where Darnold had Jefferson if he threw slightly better balls, and he couldn't get them there because of the pressure. I'm telling you guys, that's what happens when you put a quarterback under pressure. So excellent job by Aaron Glenn with how he was disguising his blitzes today. And then also, I got to talk about the red zone defense. When you talked about the Lions defense from week 1 to like I mentioned earlier, the first half of that Bears game, right? 2 things they hung their hat on: stop the run and red zone defense, right? And you saw it today again with the red zone. Every time Minnesota got the ball in there, whether it was a Goff interception in the red zone, that usually leads to an easy 7 points for the Vikings. That was something I had written down on my notes as an offense in this type of game, in this type of environment. That's a mistake that you cannot make. And the defense comes and saves the day. And that's all you need to be successful in this league. If you can be an extremely good red zone bend but don't break defense, and if you can stop the run, you can be an elite defense in this league. Touchdowns are everything. If you hold teams to field goals, you're not only slowing down momentum, but again, that's 4 points off the board each time. You're wasting that much time off the clock. They've come all this way down the field and they have to settle for 3. You're essentially denying them of free points. So the Lions, they need to continue. It's not just this game. They need to take this momentum going forward inside the red zone. And it was amazing today. This is one thing I wanted to mention after the Bills game, but first down to me for this defense is the most key down. Oftentimes you see in games where this team is giving up 6-yard plays, 7-yard plays, 8-yard plays on first down. Those are the games that the Lions are going to give up a bunch of points. But if you're able to stop the runners to 2-yard plays, to 3-yard plays on first down, that's when this Lions team is successful. And don't look at the rushing stats, okay? It was super inflated by a 1 Cam Akers super long run. I don't know how many yards it was, but I could count on my hand how many times the Vikings were in a 2nd and short situation. Every single time they were in a 2nd and long, and that's how this team needs to play in order to be successful. And you know what? A lot of it comes down to one guy, Thor. Alex Anzalone, and he returned today after missing the past few weeks with his forearm injury, and it made a humongous difference on the field. So, like I mentioned, with stopping the run, this was something that I think the Lions have struggled with the last few weeks. I don't know what the numbers say exactly, but it's definitely something that has not been good, especially inside the red zone. They haven't been able to stop the run, and today they were able to do that. The Vikings got nothing inside the 10. They couldn't move the ball in the running game to set up something with the throw. It just wasn't happening, and a big part of that is Anzalone coming back and being better at clogging up some of these run holes. I think, like I mentioned earlier, that Cam Akers' big run, that was because, Anzalone played a great game, right? But that was because he missed the hole when he was coming in to attack the running back, right? He misstepped and he took the wrong angle and he got out of the play. And that's when Cam Akers had that big hole. But other than that, Anzalone was all over the field today. There's nothing the offense could do that he wasn't all over. So big shout out to him. Not just in the run game either, by the way. This was also seen in the passing game. He had TJ Hawkinson, in jail. And we love Hawk over here in Detroit, but he had him in jail. He couldn't do anything. And that's something that, again, against San Fran, you saw George Kittle going off. You saw against the Bills, Ty Johnson going off. Anzalone is someone that you need, and I heard Dan Campbell in his press conference, he said it numerous times, but Anzalone is the quarterback of the defense. We don't just need his play. We don't just need his physical style. We also need his leadership. He's the green dot guy. He's calling out all these plays. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's so many times the defense over the last few weeks, they're confused on where to line up until the very last seconds. And that's not indicative towards Jack Campbell. It's indicative towards the value of Anzalone to this team. That's a guy that, again, blank check in the offseason. Anzalone, he's such a crucial cog on this team, and just him being there, his entire presence today, it just completely switched the game on. And Ford Field was electric when they announced Anzalone's name. It was a beautiful thing to watch. So Anzalone, man, we're super happy that you're back, and that this guy is how the defense needs. This guy is who the defense needs to play around in order to be successful for the next few games, because he's really the heart and soul of the defense. You can say Kirby Joseph has so many interceptions. You can say Brian Branch sets the tone. You can say that, Zadarius Smith, he's going to be there on a clutch play on 3rd down, 4th down. He's going to get pressure on the quarterback. But I'm telling you guys, it's Anzalone who is the heart and soul of this team's defense. And man, did we see why we needed him back today. So that was a little piece on Anzalone on the defense. Now, I finally want to get to the superstars of the defense. And number one, Amik Robertson. This is a guy who, in the offseason, right, he was playing outside corner for the Raiders. And he comes in and we tell him, okay, now you're going to play slot corner, right, exclusively for us. And then we see Carlton Davis goes down. Kindle Vildor's not doing as well on the outside. We move him back to the slot. We move him back to the outside. And it seems like he's just gotten even better. Justin Jefferson, he's the best receiver in the league. I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's top 3, but let's be honest. Justin Jefferson, best receiver in the league, okay? In terms of ability and what he can do, run after catch, the threat that he puts on the defense, he's the best. He's the best receiver in the league. Amik Robertson had him clamped. Sam Darnold couldn't. Justin Jefferson had 3 receptions today. He couldn't get anything going. And this might be Amik's best game as a professional. But he did an unbelievable job on Jefferson. And then on the other side, Terrion Arnold, in my opinion, played his best game as a pro. He got injured at the end, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Terrion Arnold was all over the field. He didn't let Addison get anything. He had a couple pass breakups in there too. Those two together, in my opinion, stole the game for the Lions away from the Vikings. Yeah, we got pressure up. But you know what? We were all expecting. I was expecting this. I'm a diehard Lions fan. I was expecting at some point for the Vikings to take a deep shot and for them to connect. And that never happened. Because Terrion Arnold and Amik Robertson were playing extremely tight, extremely physical, great coverage on one of the best receiver duos in the league. And guess what? You know what this game means? This game officially means, Vikings fans, we can end the debate. The Lions have the best receiving duo in the NFL. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams together are better than Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Glad we just got to see that, on Sunday Night Football, on Bright Stage, in Ford Field, under the lights. I mean, they are the best receiving duo in the NFL. I'm sorry. If you guys want to argue, you guys can find me on Twitter. I know I'm going to be insufferable for the next couple weeks, but, that's what happens when you guys lose. So, sorry about that. But yeah, just absolutely great day for Aaron Glenn's defense. And, like I said, Aaron Glenn, he was already going to be a head coach. And today, that just kind of solidified it for any team looking out for him. Lions fans, you guys know the drill. As soon as the offseason goes and teams are looking for head coaches, go in comment sections, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, comment, Ben Johnson won't be a good head coach. Aaron Glenn won't be a good head coach. We want these guys to stay on the team as long as possible. Obviously I wish them, the best of luck on whatever team they're going to, but, we really need to keep these guys. They are pillars of the team. They've been here since day one, and, they know the pulse of the team. And to me, that's the most important thing. So, fingers crossed on that. Jahvid Gibbs, huge day, 4 touchdowns. I think today, for me specifically, really solidified Jahvid Gibbs in the top tier of running backs in the NFL, right? He's on the same tier as your Saquon Barkleys, as your Derrick Henrys, as your Christian McCaffreys, whoever else you can name. He's no longer just a young player who has, extreme upside, extreme potential. He's an elite running back. He's in the conversation for best running back in the NFL. And Jahvid Gibbs, in my opinion, is the Lions' secret weapon. And, it may not be secret anymore, right? It's out there on the national stage. But for the next few weeks in the playoffs, the plan number 1 is for the Lions to get Jahvid Gibbs going. Get him going early. And even if he doesn't get going early like this game, if you keep feeding the ball to him, you can eventually wear down the other team with your offensive line. And when that happens, I don't care. Jahvid Gibbs is the best running back in the NFL in open space. There's no one who can catch up to him. I know there's one play where I believe it was Byron Murphy. Jahvid Gibbs got the ball. He burst into the secondary, and Byron Murphy tackled him. That was an excellent angle, excellent tackle by Byron Murphy. No question about that. But when Gibbs got out of the backfield, I swear, it feels like a bullet coming out of a gun. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. And he is 100% in that upper echelon of running backs. And I think for the Lions, with David Montgomery, I think I heard some timeline saying that he has the ability to come back during the playoffs. Craig Reynolds, in the short yardage situations that we know maybe Gibbs has a slight limitation in, he's looked great. The patience he's showing, the holes he's looking for, he's following his blocks. I mean, the limited sample size that we saw today in the short yardage situations for Craig Reynolds, that looked really promising for me. And that was great. Obviously you need Montgomery back. You hope he's back, but especially just for the short term, for getting the job done, that's looking great for Craig Reynolds. So shout out to him as well. And then I want to talk about this Coach of the Year debate, right? Between Dan Campbell and Kevin O'Connell. Huge respect for Kevin O'Connell, right? Fantastic coach. But here's what I think. This game really came down to this, right? I mentioned in the early parts of the video that this was really a close game until the end of the third quarter. This is what it came down to. Dan Campbell, when the score was 10-9 and it was 4th down in the red zone, Dan Campbell, he went for it. They hit Jahvid Gibbs on the little Texas wheel route, and they scored. Similar situation, Kevin O'Connell, he's driving. He's on the plus side of the field. It's 4th down. He opts to take a field goal. Vikings miss. Lions get the ball, go right down the field, score another touchdown, and pretty much at that point you could sense that, the air was taken out of the Vikings, right? That was the first nail in the coffin. And I think that play, it swung the momentum, and it really highlights one major thing for me. It's that Dan Campbell is Coach of the Year. He's 100% coach of the year. The way he's transformed the culture is one thing, but even in terms of his in-game decision making, man, I mean, I know a lot of people question it, but these are the types of things that win you games in big time moments. And I know there's a lot of talk, right? Whether it's Nick Wright on TV or Teddy Bruschi saying that I don't want to have that guy on my sideline. Give me Dan Campbell on the sideline 100 out of 10 times. Those are the decisions that you need to make that not only win you games, but they win you games in the playoffs. So I don't know. I don't know who they're going to give the award to this year, but that's just something I wanted to say because that was really the difference in the game, right? It was the difference. It was the mentality of the team. They didn't even question it on fourth down. They knew that they were going for it. It was the mentality of the team for me. And actually, even on the first drive that they scored, they had a fourth down, they went for it. So for everyone continuing to questioning that, this is how the Lions are going to play. This is how they're going to drop 30 points on you. And you know what? If we lose in the playoffs that way, fine by me. Fine by me. Because you know what? It's different than anyone else in the league. We can hang our hat on it. And the other secret to me is this. Because the Lions go for it so much on fourth down, they are building an appetite for making clutch plays because they're in those situations so often. I think the broadcast said Minnesota, they only gone for it like 9 times this year so far. There's a clear difference. You can see a clear difference between a team that's been in those situations a bunch versus a team that hasn't. And that's why, Minnesota, they were what, 0 for 3 on fourth down today? And Detroit was what, 4 for 5? That's the difference, man. That's the difference in the game. So big shout out to Dan Campbell. And as a Lions fan, we've obviously, as a fan base, right, we've all been through a lot of pain. A lot of you guys, if you're a lot older than me, then you've probably been through even more pain. But I could start you off on the Anthony Hitchens call in the Lions Cowboys game in 2014 in the playoffs. The batting the ball out of the end zone on Calvin Johnson against the Seahawks. What else? The Golden Tate 10-second runoff in 2017, and so much more that I could just name. Even last year in the Cowboys, we've seen so much heartbreak go against us. But I think the biggest thing for me personally that Dan Campbell has shown, and the culture that he's brought in here, is that none of these things should matter because you have an opportunity to win the game. And if you don't, then it's on you. For the longest time, we always felt sorry for ourselves because of, these things. Or, it was Detroit versus everybody. We're always getting screwed by the referees. But this new regime is showing us that it doesn't matter because you have to win the game regardless of the odds. And Dan Campbell, the culture, Brad Holmes, Sheila Hamp, it's been unbelievable the way that they've brought everything together, and we just have to give them total credit for it. This is right. I don't think you guys understand the magnitude of this. This is 2 straight NFC North titles. Since when have the Lions been able to say that? I think this might be the first time in franchise history. You've secured the first seed for the first time in franchise history. There's been a lot of firsts this year. And that's because of the job that these guys have done since they've come in from day one. They inherited probably the worst situation in the entire NFL, and they've turned it into this. And if you're a fan like me who is, from the early training camp stages, you were, listening in, how is Dan Campbell doing? You're watching his early press conference, or first press conference, where he's talking about biting kneecaps. And, there are some concerns early on. The offense doesn't look good. Dan Campbell takes over play calling the first year. They completely turn a page. You start to build your identity on the offensive line, on the offense. I remember that game against Arizona in the first year, where I think the Lions, they won 37-14. That was the type of game that showed you the Lions had an identity. They were going to win football games, and that this coaching staff, this front office, and this ownership is the best for this team that it's ever been. And to me, whatever happens in the playoffs going forward, it solidified this to me that whatever happens the rest of the season, the Lions are going to be in good hands regardless going forward into the future. So just big shout out to Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, and Sheila. So I also want to shout out Jared Goff. I know the numbers aren't going to say that he had his gaudiest game today, but just the amount of throws that he had under pressure. I know he had 2 interceptions. The first one was, can't have that in the red zone, and the second one was probably miscommunication with JMO. But there's so many times, 3rd down, 4th down, that he stood, with pressure in his face, delivered a dart, and to me, that's what actually opened up the floodgates to the run game being as successful as it was in the 3rd quarter and 4th quarter. So, Jared Goff, you came into Detroit. A lot of people in Detroit, including me, didn't believe that you're gonna be the starting quarterback of the future. You proved everyone wrong, and you're in this position again where you can take a team to a Super Bowl and solidify not only your legacy in the Lions record books, but also in NFL history, man. So, Jared Goff, that's our guy, Lions fans, and he's just done a great job, being part of the transformation. And that's all the words I have, because he's done such a great job for us from start to finish. And I know you guys can remember in the first season of the regime, there was one point where Dan Campbell said, if you're going to turn the ball over, you can't play for us. And that was when Jared was turning the ball over a lot. And since then, he's been nothing short of magical. The way that he responds after adversity is exactly what this team needs. Sam Darnold, early on, he was getting hit, he was getting sacked, he was getting pressured, and pretty much the whole night he couldn't get in rhythm. Jared Goff got hit early on. But you know what makes Jared Goff stand out? It's that he can get back up, he can deliver again, and when pressure comes back, Jared Goff will stand in the pressure, smile, and deliver. And that's not only Jared Goff, that's the identity of the team, that's the identity of the city, and it's been a great season. So, guys, it's great to be a Lions fan now. Go out. Here's to being insufferable for the next 2 weeks. And you know what? I'll catch you guys later. Peace.